I used to believe in us, in him, in the kind of love that felt safe, unshakable. Daniel was the man who made me laugh when I needed it most, who traced invisible patterns on my skin as we lay in bed, who swore, without hesitation, that I was his one and only. And I believed every word. Love does that to you, doesn't it? It builds a world where doubt feels like betrayal, where questioning feels like a crime. So, I never questioned. I never let myself think, even for a second, that everything we had was built on lies. But then, the shift happened, subtle at first. A hesitation in his voice, a kiss that didn't linger the way it used to, and his phone, always within reach, always face down, always silenced. I told myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking, that I was being one of those women. But doubt is a quiet thing, a whisper in the back of your mind that won't let you sleep. And soon, the whispers turned into screams. The excuses started piling up. Late nights at the office, last-minute business trips, showers the moment he walked through the door. My stomach twisted at the inconsistencies, but still, I held on. I wanted to believe in him, in us. I wanted to believe that love was stronger than suspicion. But love without proof is just blind faith, and I wasn't blind anymore. And then, one night, the truth found me. His phone, left unlocked. One swipe, and there it was. The messages, the hotel reservations, the photos, God, the photos. A different woman, a different life. One he had been living behind my back while still kissing me goodnight. My world didn't just crumble, it burned. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't wake him up and demand answers. No, that would have been mercy. And Daniel didn't deserve mercy. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen, letting the weight of it all settle in. My fingers trembled, not from sadness, but from something colder, something sharper. Betrayal doesn't just wound you, it rewires you. I had always imagined that if this ever happened to me, I'd cry, scream, throw things, demand explanations. But there I was, calm, too calm, because deep down I already knew. The signs had been there all along, I had just chosen to ignore them. I glanced at Daniel, fast asleep beside me, oblivious to the storm he had just unleashed. His face looked peaceful, almost innocent. It made me sick. How many times had he kissed me with the same lips that whispered to her? How many times had he held me while planning to meet her? My stomach turned, but not with heartbreak. No, this was something else. Something that settled deep in my bones, cold and steady. I could have woken him up right then, thrown his phone at him, watched him stammer through his pathetic excuses. But that would have made it too easy for him. He'd deny, twist the story, maybe even find a way to make me question myself. No, I wasn't going to give him that chance. I wasn't going to be another woman begging for the truth, only to be fed more lies. Instead, I took a deep breath and made a decision. If Daniel thought he could deceive me, then he had no idea who he was dealing with. I wouldn't just walk away. I wouldn't just leave him to his double life. No, I was going to destroy the illusion he had so carefully built. And I was going to do it in a way he'd never forget. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my mind started crafting the perfect plan. Walking away wasn't enough. Screaming at him, throwing his things onto the street, letting him watch me break down. That would only feed his ego. It would make him feel powerful, like he had options. But what if, instead of breaking, I turned the tables? What if I made him feel the very thing he had never expected? Powerless. I needed time. Time to smile at him like nothing had changed. Time to let him kiss me without realizing I was counting down the days until I set fire to his world. Every moment we spent together from now on would be a performance, my greatest act yet. I'd be the devoted girlfriend, planning something special, something he wouldn't see coming, because if Daniel was good at lying, I was about to become exceptional at it. I turned onto my side, watching him breathe, his chest rising and falling in peaceful ignorance. He had no idea that the Sophia lying beside him wasn't the same one from yesterday. The woman he had deceived no longer existed. In her place stood someone colder, sharper, someone willing to play the long game. Because love makes you blind, but betrayal? Betrayal makes you see everything with terrifying clarity. I closed my eyes, a slow smile curling at the edges of my lips. Oh, Daniel. He thought he had won. He thought he had gotten away with it. But he had no idea. His perfect little life was already over. And the best part? He wouldn't even see it coming. The next morning, I woke up before him, just as I always did. I brewed coffee, made toast, and played the role of the devoted girlfriend flawlessly. When Daniel finally stumbled into the kitchen, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, he had no idea that the woman smiling at him across the counter was no longer the same. I watched him sip his coffee, oblivious, checking his phone under the table like he always did. If only he knew. I leaned against the counter, my voice light, effortless. I was thinking, we should throw a party, something fun, something big. His head lifted, his expression wary for a second before he smoothed it over with that charming smile, the one he had probably given her too. A party? He repeated. What kind of party? I shrugged, playing it off as nothing. You know, a surprise birthday party for Olivia. She's always complaining we never do anything for her. Olivia was a mutual friend, someone he wouldn't question. The perfect cover. He relaxed, nodding in approval, already scrolling through his phone as if he had more important things to focus on. I forced myself to keep smiling, to look just as uninterested as he was. He had no idea this wasn't about Olivia at all. No, this was about him, about us, and about the night I would make sure he never forgot. Planning the party was easier than I expected. People love an excuse to gather, drink, and celebrate, and Daniel, being the ever-charming, ever-social man he pretended to be, embraced the idea without hesitation. He even suggested inviting more people, widening the guest list. Perfect. The more, the better. Every extra set of eyes meant more witnesses to the unraveling of his perfect little world. I crafted every detail with precision. A beautiful venue, elegant decor, the right blend of friends, family, and colleagues. The people who mattered most to him, his inner circle. The ones whose respect he couldn't afford to lose. I watched him as he scrolled through his phone, probably texting her between conversations with me, completely unaware that I was one step ahead. Keep smiling, Sophia. Keep playing the part. The real invitations, though, were separate from the ones Daniel knew about. Those were personal. Carefully written, deliberately sent. Inside each envelope, his guests would find more than just an invitation. They would find the truth. Screenshots of texts, stolen moments frozen in photographs, proof so undeniable that even his most loyal friends wouldn't be able to defend him. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was still to come. Because this wouldn't just be a night of whispered conversations and scandalous revelations. No, this was going to be a performance. A grand finale. And Daniel? He was the star of the show. As the days passed, I perfected every detail. The venue was booked, the catering finalized, the guest list confirmed. Daniel remained blissfully unaware, too consumed by his own deceit to notice mine. At night, I lay beside him, feeling the weight of his betrayal press against my skin, but I never faltered, not once. Every kiss, every smile, every playful laugh, it was all part of the act, and he bought it. The real magic, though, was in the timing. I didn't just want him exposed. I wanted him blindsided. The evidence wouldn't be handed out like a petty scandal whispered behind closed doors. No, it would be a spectacle, unfolding in real time, when he least expected it. I had arranged for the perfect moment, just as the cake would be brought out, just as glasses would be raised for a toast. That's when the lights would dim, the screens would flicker to life, and the truth would spill into the room for everyone to see. I could already picture it, the way his face would drain of color, the way laughter would die in his throat, the gasps, the murmurs, the sheer humiliation. Would he deny it? Try to run? Beg? It didn't matter. There would be nowhere to hide, no words he could say to undo what was about to happen. The walls were closing in, and he hadn't even noticed. I glanced at him that night as he slept beside me, his breathing slow, steady, completely unaware that his world had already started crumbling. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the texts, the photos, the betrayal. And just like that, any trace of pity disappeared. The night of the party arrived and everything was set. The venue buzzed with laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses, just as I had planned. Daniel, dressed in his effortlessly charming way, moved through the crowd with his usual confidence, shaking hands, flashing that easy smile. He had no idea that each person he greeted had already seen the truth. That behind every polite nod and friendly chuckle, there was a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. I played my part flawlessly, laughing at his jokes, placing my hand lightly on his arm, pretending I was still the adoring girlfriend who saw him as the center of her world. I watched as he basked in the attention, completely unaware that the walls around him were already closing in. It was almost too easy. Then, the moment arrived. The lights dimmed slightly as the cake was brought out, a grand gesture for what was supposed to be the highlight of the night. Guests gathered, their glasses raised, ready to toast. Daniel stood in the center, soaking it all in, the picture of a man who thought he had everything under control. I stepped forward, microphone in hand, my heartbeat steady, my voice smooth. "Tonight is a special night," I began, my eyes sweeping over the crowd. "A night of truth. And the guest of honor? My dear Daniel." I turned toward him, smiling just as the screens behind me flickered to life. And then, everything shattered. For a split second, there was silence. That thick, suffocating kind of silence that stretches just before impact. Then, gasps. Low murmurs rippling through the crowd. On the massive screen behind me, the evidence played like a cruel highlight reel. Text messages, hotel reservations, intimate photos he had sent and received. Every damning detail, every lie, every moment he thought was secret, now illuminated for the entire room to see. I turned to face Daniel, my expression unreadable, though inside, I was drinking in every flicker of emotion on his face. First confusion, then slow dawning horror. His jaw clenched, his eyes darted around the room, searching, probably for an escape. There was none. The air shifted, the warmth of celebration drained from the space, replaced by something heavier, something darker. Judgment, disgust, betrayal. His family stood frozen, their faces pale. His colleagues exchanged glances, muttering under their breath. Some of his so-called friends stepped back, already distancing themselves from the wreckage. And then, the moment I had been waiting for, the panic. "Wait, this is fake." His voice cracked, raw with desperation. He turned to me, his eyes pleading, but there was nothing left for him here. Not anymore. I tilted my head slightly, watching him unravel. "Fake?" I echoed, my voice almost amused. I gestured to the screen behind me, where another incriminating message appeared, his own words condemning him. "Daniel, are you saying you don't recognize your own texts? Your own photos?" The murmurs grew louder. Whispers turned into full conversations. Some guests shifted uncomfortably, while others looked on with barely concealed delight. And just like that, the man who had walked into this party as the center of attention now stood as nothing more than a spectacle, a broken thing, exposed under the weight of his own deception. The room had turned against him. His once loyal friends now looked at him like a stranger. His family stood in silent shame, and his colleagues, some of whom he probably hoped to impress, watched with barely concealed judgment. He opened his mouth again, scrambling, desperate to regain control. "This isn't what it looks like. Sophia, please, we can talk about this." I almost laughed. Talk? Oh, now he wanted to talk. After months of deception, after lying to my face over and over again, after making me feel like a fool, now he wanted a conversation? I stepped closer, lowering the microphone, letting my voice drop just enough so only he could hear. "No, Daniel, we're done talking." He looked around again, realizing that no one was stepping in to save him. His so-called mistress, if she was even in the room, had gone completely silent, probably wishing she could disappear. Someone near the back pulled out their phone, recording. Others followed. Soon, this wouldn't just be a nightmare confined to this room. It would spread. Social media, whispers at work, quiet judgments from people he hadn't even met yet. He wasn't just losing me. He was losing everything. I lifted my champagne glass, my expression effortlessly composed. "To Daniel," I said smoothly, turning back to the crowd. "May he enjoy this surprise party as much as I enjoyed planning it." A few guests chuckled, some awkwardly, some wholeheartedly. Others simply stared, unsure whether to celebrate or let the tension hang heavy in the air. I didn't wait for a response. I downed my drink in one elegant sip, placed the glass on the table beside me, and turned on my heel. As I walked toward the exit, I felt it, that weight lifting from my chest, the kind of lightness that comes from knowing you've taken back your power. I didn't need to see his reaction. I didn't need to hear what excuses he would make, or who would still stand by him after tonight. It didn't matter, because I had won. And Daniel? Daniel had finally been forced to face the one thing he had been running from all along, the truth. I didn't look back, not once. As I stepped out of that room, the crisp night air hit my face like a cleansing wave. I inhaled deeply, letting the tension melt away. Inside, Daniel was still scrambling, still drowning in the wreckage of his exposed lies. I could hear the murmurs, the gasps, the footsteps of people leaving in disgust. The party wasn't over yet. For him, it was just beginning. Outside, I pulled my phone from my purse. A dozen notifications, texts from mutual friends. Some shocked, some supportive, some just looking for gossip. And then, of course, Daniel's name at the top of the list. "Sophia, please, let's talk. Where are you? You didn't have to do this." I smirked. Didn't have to do this? The audacity. He had lied to my face for months, built a second life behind my back, humiliated me in ways I hadn't even fully processed yet. And now he wanted me to believe I was the villain? Typical. I could almost hear his voice in my head, crafting some half-baked excuse, twisting the narrative in a way that made him look like the victim. But there was nothing left to twist. I slid my phone back into my bag without responding. Let him panic. Let him feel the weight of uncertainty, the helplessness of being ignored. It was the least he deserved. I drove home in silence, my fingers gripping the wheel, my heart finally settling into a steady rhythm. The adrenaline was fading now, replaced by something quieter. Satisfaction. Not the petty kind, not revenge just for the sake of it, but the deep, soul-cleansing kind. The kind that comes from knowing justice had been served. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Daniel. "Sophia, I swear it wasn't what you think. Can we just talk?" I let out a breath, shaking my head. Wasn't what I think? That was almost funny. As if the messages, the photos, the hotel reservations could somehow be reinterpreted into something innocent. As if there was a version of this story where he wasn't the liar, the cheater, the one who had betrayed me. Pulling into my driveway, I finally allowed myself to exhale. My home felt different now, lighter. For months, I had been carrying the weight of doubt, of suspicion, of wondering if I was being crazy for noticing all the little changes. But now I had nothing left to doubt. And it felt good. I walked inside, tossing my purse onto the table, slipping off my heels. The silence wasn't lonely, it was liberating. No more waiting up for him. No more wondering where he was, who he was with, what new lie he was feeding me. He was out of my life now, stripped bare in front of the people he had worked so hard to impress. And that was exactly where he deserved to be. I poured myself a drink, letting the ice clink softly against the glass as I settled onto the couch. The quiet hum of the city outside felt different tonight, lighter, cleaner. I took a sip, savoring the burn, the warmth spreading through me. This was my victory toast, not to Daniel, not to revenge, but to freedom. My phone buzzed again, I didn't even have to look to know it was him. His desperation was predictable, almost pathetic. I finally glanced at the screen. Sophia, I need to explain. I messed up, but we can fix this. Please, just talk to me. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard for a brief moment. There were 100 things I could say, 100 ways I could tear him apart all over again. But he didn't deserve my words. He didn't deserve my time. With one swipe, I deleted the message, then another, and another. One by one, I erased every trace of him from my phone, as if I were peeling away the remnants of a life I no longer wanted. When the screen was finally empty, I exhaled. For the first time in a long time, I felt weightless. No more doubts, no more betrayal lurking in the shadows, no more pretending. Just me, my own power, my own choices. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. The morning after, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in months. No anxiety curling in my stomach, no second-guessing myself, no waiting for another lie to slip from Daniel's lips. The sun filtered through my bedroom window, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself enjoy it. I stretched, rolling onto my side, half expecting to hear his footsteps in the hallway. But then I remembered. He was gone. Not just physically, but entirely. I reached for my phone, not out of habit, but out of curiosity. Messages flooded in, friends who had been at the party, others who had heard about it. Some called me a genius, some were still in shock. A few, probably the ones who had once admired Daniel, had nothing to say at all. And then, of course, there was him. Daniel's name sat at the top of my notifications. Sophia, please. I just want to talk. I don't deserve this. Can we meet? I can explain everything. I laughed under my breath. He still didn't get it. There was nothing left to explain. No version of this where he walked away unscathed. He had spent months building a lie, and in a single night, I had burned it all down. And now he was the one sifting through the ashes, while I was already stepping into something new. I deleted his messages, one by one, with a kind of satisfaction I never knew I needed. Daniel was nothing more than a lesson now, a memory fading into the background, and I had better things to focus on, like the life I was about to start, one that no longer revolved around him. I spent the day doing something I hadn't done in a long time, living for myself. No checking my phone every 5 minutes, no waiting for an excuse, no feeling that dull ache in my chest. I walked to my favorite cafe, the one I had stopped visiting because Daniel always said it was too crowded. I sat by the window, sipping my coffee, watching the world move around me, realizing how much I had let myself shrink to fit into his life. People whispered about me as I walked past, recognizing me from the party. A few smiled, some gave me knowing nods. The story had spread beyond the guests. It was everywhere now. I wasn't just the woman Daniel had cheated on. I was the woman who had exposed him, the woman who had taken her power back in the most unforgettable way. And honestly, I liked that. Later that evening, I got another message from a number I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it might be Daniel again, trying to reach me from another phone. But when I opened it, I realized it was from her. I didn't know about you. He told me he was single. I'm sorry. I stared at the words for a moment, waiting for anger to rise, for that familiar sting of betrayal. But it never came. Instead, I just sighed. Of course he had lied to her too. He had probably built a whole other life, feeding her the same sweet words he once whispered to me. But now she knew. And if she had any self-respect, she'd run before he tried to drag her down with him. I deleted her message, just like I had deleted his. This wasn't my problem anymore. Daniel was her mess to clean up now, if she even wanted to. I had nothing left to say. That night, I poured myself another drink, letting the ice melt slowly as I stood on my balcony, staring out at the city lights. It was funny, how quickly life could change. Just a week ago, I had been a woman second-guessing herself, holding on to a love that had already turned to dust. And now I was free. I scrolled through my phone one last time before setting it down for good. Daniel had stopped messaging. Maybe he had finally accepted that I was done. Or maybe he was too busy dealing with the fallout, his broken reputation, his fractured relationships, his sudden fall from grace. Either way, it wasn't my concern. He was drowning in the mess he had created, and I had no intention of throwing him a lifeline. I raised my glass to the night, smiling to myself. This wasn't a toast to revenge. No, revenge had already served its purpose. This was a toast to something much better, closure. The kind that didn't need an apology, didn't need validation, didn't need anything from him at all. With a final sip, I turned away from the past, stepping back into the warmth of my own space, my own life. And this time, it belonged only to me.